sprinted the whole way to the parking lot, got in my truck, and sped off. About a week has passed, and that night all seemed like nothing more than... At dinner, me and Heather, the girl I met earlier, were really getting along. She laughed at all my jokes, which is always a good sign since they aren't really that funny. Everything was great. It was her. This was the old woman that was in the woods. They knew where to find her. They are probably going to kill me because of what I've seen. I'm in the restroom of the restaurant now. I think she might know that I know. My exit was less than graceful. I don't know who to trust. I don't know who actually believe. I'm afraid I might be kidnapped. Some wouldn't be. It happened abruptly on a plane. I was woken up by some turbulence, and instead of going back to sleep, I stood up and demanded the nearest stewardess to bring me some sugar water. My voice was coarse, and I could feel every muscle tense across my body, as if I was preparing to do a backflip. After crushing a Mountain Dew, I practically barked like a dog. More sugar. It was terrifying. Something awful had seized all executive functions of my brain. That's the best way I could put it. It's like my consciousness got kicked out of the driver's creature who was proselytizing by a rack of pamphlets. He might have been a Mormon or a Jehovah's Witness. Gigi stepped out first, followed by what I would call her right-hand loyalist, a woman who perpetually wore a violet scarf. From the crack of my window, I watched Gigi and Violet introduce themselves as fellow evangelicals. They said we were all going to a public prayer, and that we could use more preachers outside to attract attendees. That's very kind of you to invite me, the man said, but I'm used to just sticking to my corner here. They insisted and said it was all for the greater good, but the man still politely declined. You should know something, Gigi said, and took off her sunglasses. Something in her eyes had the man absolutely captivated. We are angels, sent by God. There was a pause. The preacher continued to stare without blinking. You're... what? And we're having a congregation. The car's windows rolled down, revealing our 6 women.
How are you backing up your business-critical Microsoft 365 data? More people than ever are relying on collaborative apps such as Microsoft 365. It's the way people are working now, and you need to make sure that your work is protected from accidental loss or threat of ransomware. You need to be able to recover Microsoft 365 data fast and restore it to any user or location, and you don't want to worry about complex retention policies or other limitations. Microsoft even recommends that you use a third-party backup solution to protect your Microsoft 365 data. Choose an instantly scalable SaaS backup solution with unlimited retention. Barracuda Cloud-to-Cloud Backup. Cloud-to-Cloud Backup offers comprehensive Microsoft 365 backup and recovery with advanced search and filtering. Ease of use with flexible, granular recovery for Teams, Exchange, SharePoint, and OneDrive. Highly scalable, resilient, cloud-native backup with simple per-user pricing. Get started now, and you could be running your first backup in 5 minutes.
If you like options, you'll love my $5 all-day big deal meal. Choose from 4 delicious entrees and 5 tasty sides with a drink. Oh, and nobody else includes breakfast items all day. Just this guy. And John, every bite's a big deal. Welcome to Talking About.
Crew. At this point, I should mention that before I became body snatched, and before I became a mom, I was a fashion model for many years. In fact, all of these possessed women looked like idyllic models. With their long, shiny hair and unblemished faces, we were basically a postcard for Sephora. You, the shocked at all of us. "Your angels?" He didn't object when Violet grabbed his rack of brochures and placed it in the trunk. And he also didn't object when Gigi led him into the passenger seat in front of me. The car doors closed and we were off again in seconds. "So does this mean the end times are near?" He was visibly stunned, laughing. Violet, who sat beside me, secured a gold ring along her finger. A dart-like needle protruded from it. "Something like that." She slinked an elbow over his shoulder and stabbed the ring into his neck. "Ow, hey, what is that?" Violet pulled away. "What, this? It's Bulgari, off Sax on Ventura." "Why does it burn?" The man clasped his wound, patting it as if it were on fire. After a few squirms and moans, he fell completely limp. All the women honked an aggressive, nasal sound. A celebration, the thing controlling me joined in, honking at full volume. The abandoned hotel they inhabited was somewhere between Los Angeles and Bakersfield. It was hard to be precise because my eyes weren't always looking out the window. "Let me give you the grand tour," Violet said. Or at least that's what I assumed the seal-like barking coming from her mouth meant. The foyer was filled with flats upon flats of energy drinks. Monster, Red Bull, Rockstar, and dozens of other brands that all looked the same. Our bedrooms looked all like normal hotel bedrooms, except there were massive locks on the outside handles. Violet also gave me a peek at the rooftop balcony patio, where I wish I could have averted my gaze, or closed my eyes, instead of staring right at the pile. There were about 24 bodies, each one lifeless, each one dressed in very nice clothes, their Sunday best.
Damn it.
He swore he saw, but couldn't explain. I grew up believing there was more to the world than what we could see or touch. When I was 10, we moved closer to these woods. My parents said it reminded them of home. I didn't question it much. I was too busy exploring. I'd spend hours wandering through the trees, picking up sticks, and trying to mimic the bird calls. I felt like the forest spoke to me, not in words, but in the way the wind would shift, or the rustle of leaves seemed to follow me. Maybe that's why I ended up here. I wanted to protect this place. I wanted to understand it. When I turned 18, I applied for a job as a park ranger. To my surprise, I got it. Back then, I thought it'd be simple. Keeping campers from starting fires, warning hikers about bears, and rescuing the occasional lost tourist. But these woods aren't like other places. You'll notice it eventually, if you haven't already. It starts subtle, like the feeling of being watched when you're alone, or the way the paths seem to change when you're not paying attention. The animals here don't act the way they're supposed to, and sometimes they're not animals at all. It's for your sanity. If you follow my advice, you might just make it to the end of your shift in one piece. And if you don't, well, you probably won't have the chance to regret it. I decided to write this guide, not just for the next set of rangers, but also for myself. After so many years in these woods, I wanted to collect my stories in one place. Some of these stories are lessons. Others are just memories I don't want to lose. When you've spent as much time as I have here, you realize that the job, it gets into your bones. It becomes part of who you are. All right, well, first off, you should know this. People go missing in these woods. More often than most folks would believe. There are more unreported cases than there are reported ones. That is not an exaggeration. People vanish, even when we do our best to warn them. And when they come back, if they come back, they're different. They're terrified, sobbing, and shaking like leaves. But the worst part, they're blind. Not permanently, but blind all the same. For 3 days exactly, they can't see a thing. And then, like clockwork, their sight comes back, and they can never explain what happened to them. They don't remember. They don't even know how they got back to the trail or the station. You'd think after seeing this enough times, I'd get used to it. But I don't. There's something deeply unsettling about watching someone stumble out of the woods, tears streaming down their face, hands reaching out for something they can't see. I know how this sounds, like I'm trying to scare you. Maybe I am a little. You should be scared. These woods aren't right. There's something about them that doesn't fit with the rest of the world. Something strange and old and unexplainable. But it's not all bad. The station itself is a cozy place. Coffee pot's always full. Free, too, which is a perk of the job. The break room has a dartboard, and while I'm no pro, I've won more games than I've lost. On slow days, when the woods are quiet, we'll play a few rounds, laughing and taking jabs at each other. It's a kind of banter that makes the job bearable. Then there's the lake. On my off days, I grab my fishing pole and head down there. The water's so still, it's like glass, reflecting the trees and sky perfectly. I don't always catch anything, but that's not the point. Sitting there, listening to the gentle lapping of the water, you'd swear the world wasn't such a strange place after all. Sometimes my coworkers join me, and we'll sit for hours, swapping stories and cracking jokes. It's moments like those that make the job worth it. But no matter how much I try to focus on the good, I can't escape the strangeness of these woods. It's always there, lurking just at the edge of things. The way the paths seem to shift, even when you know them by heart. The way the trees creak and groan, even when there's no wind. I've learned to live with it. Keep one foot in the normal world and one in whatever place this is. That balance is the key to surviving here. For now, though, I'll leave it at this. The woods are beautiful and dangerous, full of things that will make you fall in love with them and things that will haunt you. If you're stepping into my shoes, take this guide seriously. And maybe, when you've been here long enough, you'll add your own stories to it. That's what this job does to you. It gives you stories. Stories that stay with you, whether you want them to or not. There's something else about these woods that I need to tell you. Something I haven't quite wrapped my head around, even after all these years. It's about the coins. They're about the size of $1, maybe a little thicker, and they're scattered all over the woods. You'll find them in the oddest places, wedged between rocks, half buried in the dirt. or even resting on tree branches like someone carefully placed them there. The coins have the words Wonder World LTO stamped across them, along with an engraving of what looks like an old amusement park. Now here's the kicker. There is no amusement park called Wonder World anywhere in the state. I've checked. The closest park of any kind is about 2 hours away, and it ain't called Wonder World. Nobody knows where these coins come from. Each person just finds one. Never more, never less. And it always feels like the coin is meant for them somehow. When you pick one up, and believe me, most people can't resist, you get this strange, almost magnetic pull, like the coin wants you to take it somewhere. And that somewhere is the vending machine out back. Now that vending machine has been here longer than I have, and I have been around for a long time. It sits behind the ranger station, near the edge of the woods, tucked under an awning like it's trying to stay hidden. The machine has the same Wonder World LTO logo stamped on it, with designs of a whimsical amusement park decorating the sides. The words "Try Your Luck" are written across the top in faded, curling letters. But the vending machine doesn't look like something you'd trust. It's old and worn, the paint chipped, and the metal rusting in spots. Over the years, I've seen all kinds of things come out of that machine. One time, it gave a young man a brass key. He tried every lock in the station and in his car, but the key didn't fit anything. Another time, it gave a hiker a guitar pick. He didn't even play guitar, but he kept it anyway. There's been a tea packet, a pair of dice, a toy car, a vintage playing card, and even a ticket stub for a concert that happened decades ago. But it's not the items themselves that make the machine strange. It's what happens afterward. There are rumors, of course. Stories that make their way through the station and the surrounding towns. Like the girl who got the brass key and used it to unlock the door to her dream university. Figuratively, I mean. She got in with a full scholarship. Just like that. Or the guy who got a ticket stub and was promoted at work the very next day. Not all the stories are good, though. I remember one guy, a tourist passing through, who found a coin and couldn't resist trying his luck. The machine spat out a toothpick. Just a plain old wooden toothpick. A week later, he got food poisoning so bad he had to be hospitalized. Then, there was the film director who came out here scouting locations for his next project. He found a coin, used it on the machine, and got an empty film canister. A month later, he died in a car accident on the way to a set. The vending machine doesn't just give you something random. It seems to do something to your life. Sometimes it's good. Sometimes it's not. I've warned people about it, of course. Told them to stay away from the coins in the machine. But curiosity is a powerful thing, and most people don't listen. They think it's just an old machine with a few quirks, or they laugh it off like I'm trying to scare them. I'm not. I don't mess with the coins. Never have. And then there are the dining tables. Well, dining sets, really. 2 chairs and a small square table. Plates, cups, and candles are always neatly arranged on top. Everything looks pristine, like it came straight out of a catalog. And just like the red tape and the vending machine, nobody knows where they come from. No one has ever seen anyone carrying these things in or out of the forest. They just appear. Sometimes the candles are even lit. That part always gives me the creeps. There's never any food on the plates, and the cups are always empty. It's like the setup is waiting for something, or someone, that never shows up. What makes it even stranger is that the dining sets are always spotless. Not a speck of dirt, not a single leaf or twig out of place, even though they're out in the middle of the woods. They're so clean that they don't look like they belong here. And sometimes the chairs are knocked over, like whoever or whatever was there didn't finish what they started. People who find these setups, they're usually amused at first. They think it's a quirky decoration or some kind of prop that rangers put out to make the woods feel unique. I've seen photos people have taken with them, smiling like it's a fun discovery. But it's not fact with the dining sets, whether they touch them, take photos with them, or even sit down in the chairs. They tend to have bad luck afterward. One time, a group of hikers found a dining set near the river. They thought it was hilarious. They took turns posing for pictures, sitting at the table like they were at a fancy restaurant. A week later, one of them got into a bad car accident. Another broke their arm while hiking in a completely different park. None of it seemed connected, except for the fact that they'd all been at that table. Another time, a couple found a setup along the trail. The candles were lit, and they thought it was romantic. The man proposed to his girlfriend right there, and she said yes. The next day, they got lost in the woods for hours, even though the trail was well marked. They eventually found their way back, but not without a lot of scratches, a sprained ankle, and a couple broken bones. The dining sets aren't always there when someone goes looking for them. Hikers will report seeing one, but by the time a ranger arrives at the location, it's gone. Just like that. It's like the forest knows when someone's trying to investigate. It just moves them somewhere else. The first time I heard about the tables was from an older ranger who worked here before me. He told me plain as day, if you see a dining set in the woods, you don't go near it. Just turn around and leave. I didn't ask why at the time. I figured it was just one of those weird stories people tell you to mess with the new guy. But then I saw one myself. It was during one of my early patrols. I was walking a trail near the north side of the park when I spotted it. 2 chairs and a table, all perfectly arranged, right in the middle of a clearing. The plates gleamed in the sunlight. and the candles were unlit. Someone to come along and light them. I didn't go near it. I didn't even stop walking. I kept moving like I hadn't seen a thing. Since then, I've seen the tables pop up here and there, always in different spots. I don't know who sets them up or why, and honestly, I don't want to know. When hikers mention seeing one, I tell them the same thing. Don't touch it. Don't take pictures, don't put it on your Instagram, and definitely don't sit down. Most of them laugh it off or say, oh, come on, man, it's just a table. But I've learned that nothing in these woods is ever just anything. The forest has its rules, and the dining sets are a part of that. Maybe they're a warning, like the red tape. Maybe there's something else entirely. I don't have the answers, but I know better than to mess with them. If you're ever out here and you come across one of those setups, do yourself a favor. Turn around and walk away. Whatever it is, it's not worth finding out. Some mysteries in these woods aren't meant to be solved. And then there's the red tape. The red tape shows up in the strangest places. You'll see it tied around trees or dangling from branches, sometimes like ribbons fluttering in the breeze. Other times, it's wrapped tightly around the trunk of a tree, layer upon layer, like someone went at it with a roll of duct tape. The thing is, it's been here longer than I've been working this job. Maybe longer than this station's even existed. And nobody knows where it comes from. Not me, not the other rangers, not anyone. But I do know one thing. Back in the old country where my parents came from, red ribbons had meaning. My mother used to tell me about them. They were used to mark spiritual areas, places you weren't supposed to mess with. Sometimes they marked haunted places, sometimes sites of old rituals, and other times they were warnings about dangerous spots. Either way, the message was the same: keep away. Here in these woods, I think the message still applies. The areas with red tape have the highest number of accidents. Forest fires, near drownings, broken equipment. You name it, it's happened near the red tape. Worst of all, those are the areas where the most people disappear. You'd think the tape would be enough of a warning. People are curious. They see it and think it's just some leftover marker from an old project or something the rangers put up. They don't listen when we tell them to avoid those spots. Some of them wander into the taped-off areas anyway, thinking it's no big deal. And a lot of them don't come back. Over the years, there have been reports of strange things in those parts of the woods. The one thing that comes up the most is about a man. People say they've seen him standing between the trees, watching them. The thing is, he has no eyes. The locals have taken to calling him Eyeless Jack. I don't know who came up with the name, but it's stuck. Most of the sightings are vague, a figure in the distance, the sense of being watched, footsteps that don't belong to anyone. But every so often, you get a report that's more specific, more detailed, and those are the ones that keep me up at night. Still, not every story about these woods is terrifying. There's another legend, one that's almost comforting. It's about a dog. A German Shepherd, to be exact. Now, nobody knows his name or where he came from, but the stories are always the same. The dog shows up when people need him most, usually when kids are involved. The rangers don't talk about him much, but we all know the stories. There was the time a little boy got separated from his parents while hiking. The family was frantic, shouting his name and running up and down the trails. By the time they found him, he was sitting on a rock, petting a big German Shepherd that nobody else recognized. Maybe you've heard that story before, it's kind of famous. Then, there was the girl who wandered off from her campsite at night. She was only 5, couldn't have gotten far, but the woods can feel endless in the dark. When her parents finally found her, she was standing in a clearing, holding onto the dog's collar, like he was guiding her. The parents always thank us afterward, thinking the dog belongs to one of us. They don't know that we've never claimed him. He's not ours. We have a little ritual for him, though. Out behind the station, near the vending machine, actually, there's 2 bowls, one for water and one for kibble. They're nothing fancy, just old metal dishes we keep clean and filled. It's an unspoken rule among the Rangers. Even if none of us ever see the dog, we make sure the bowls are ready, just in case. Some of us joke that it's like leaving an offering for a guardian spirit. Others take it more seriously. Whatever the case, we keep the bowls there, and every now and then, we notice the food and water are gone. I like the idea of the dog being real, though. Not just a story, but something out there, looking out for people. In a place like this, with all its strangeness and danger, it's nice to think there's something good, too.
You know that thing your family does? Someone made it a thing back in the day. But where did it come from? And how did it get all the way to you? See for yourself at Ancestry.
One of the worst incidents I've ever seen involved a hiker named Amanda. She was young, fresh out of college, and full of energy. She came into the station with a group of friends. 3 others, if I remember right. 2 guys and another girl. I don't recall their names, but I will never forget Amanda. She told us she was on a gap year before starting her master's program. Said she wanted to travel and hike like her dad used to. At first, she seemed like your average adventurous spirit. But the more I talked to her, the more I realized she wasn't taking this place seriously. Amanda laughed at our warnings. Her friends did too. They acted like the woods were a theme park and we were just being dramatic. I had a bad feeling about them the moment they walked out of the station. But I've learned over the years that you can't save everyone. People have to make their own choices. A few days later, I was working an early morning shift. The sun hadn't even risen yet, and the woods were still cloaked in darkness. I was sipping my coffee, going over the day's patrol schedule, when the door to the station slammed open. It was Amanda and her friends. The girls were crying, and the guys looked like they were trying to keep it together, but their faces were pale, their hands trembling. Then I saw Amanda. She was clutching one of her friends, her eyes wide open but unseeing. She was blind. She kept screaming that she couldn't see, and then her voice dropped to a chilling, repetitive chant. In the woods so dark and black, don't look twice for eyeless Jack. She wouldn't stop saying it, over and over, like it was the only thing keeping her grounded. We called for an ambulance, and they rushed her to the hospital. I found out later, just like every other case, Amanda's sight returned exactly 3 days later. No more, no less. Before they left, her friends mentioned camping near one of the red-taped sections of the woods. I didn't need to hear more to know what probably happened. Amanda had wandered off. She ignored the warnings, and she saw something she wasn't supposed to see. The next day, I decided to investigate. Not because I thought I could fix anything, just to make sure nobody else got hurt. I headed to the area her friends described, careful to stay well outside the red tape. The section they'd camped near was deep in the forest, far from marked trails. The trees were dense, their gnarled roots twisting through the ground. The air was still, and the usual sounds of the forest, birds, squirrels, the occasional rustling leaves, were noticeably absent. I walked the perimeter of the red tape, scanning the area for anything unusual. And that's when I saw him. A man, standing about 50 yards away, just beyond the red tape. He was wearing a red flannel shirt and jeans, his back turned to me. At first glance, he looked like a lost hiker, but there was something about the way he stood that made my skin crawl. He was too still. I watched him for a moment, expecting him to shift his weight, scratch his head, or do something. Anything that a person would normally do. But he didn't move. There was no rise or fall of his shoulders to indicate breathing. He was like a statue, frozen in place. I called out, "Hey, you okay? You lost?" No response. I took a step closer, still keeping a safe distance from the red tape. "If you need help, I can guide you back to the station." The man began to turn, slowly, like he was on a rusted hinge. But before he could face me, a sharp bark sounded from behind me. It was loud and clear, the kind of bark you'd expect from a large dog. I watched in awe as a large German shepherd dove right past me toward the man in the flannel shirt, growling furiously. It happened so fast. I watched as the dog grabbed hold of the man's flannel shirt and jerked him from side to side. And then the man pulled himself away, a piece of his flannel tearing off, and he ran off into the woods. The dog chased after it, and it was one of the craziest things I have ever seen. I just stood and listened for a few moments to the two disappear into the forest. And then I walked over. And for some reason, I still don't fully understand, I picked up the torn red piece of the man's shirt. All I know is it didn't feel safe to leave it out there. Like if someone found it, something bad would happen. After that, I headed straight back to the station, told my buddies what I had seen, and they believed me. This job comes with a lot of responsibility, but the part that sticks with me the most, the part that keeps me up at night, is the missing persons board. It hangs in the main hallway of the ranger station, right where anyone walking in can see it. I try to keep it updated as much as possible. Photos of people who've gone missing in these woods stare back at me every time I pass by. Some of them are black and white, faded with time, while others are bright and new. A few faces stick with me more than others. There are too many photos on that board. Some of the faces belong to people I've met, people I've warned, people I've tried to help. Others are strangers whose stories I've only heard about through search parties and reports. The ones who come back don't always have answers. They just come back different. Blind for 3 days, scared, and never able to explain what happened to them. I do my best to warn visitors. Every hiker, camper, and tourist who walks through the doors gets the same spiel. I tell them about the red tape and how it marks places they shouldn't go. I tell them to leave any coins they find alone and to avoid the vending machine if they see it. I tell them not to sit in any mysterious dining sets, no matter how clear or charming they look. And I tell them to stick to the trails, no matter what. Most of them don't listen. They laugh, nod politely, or just brush me off entirely. To them, these woods are just another place to explore, another notch on their hiking boots. They don't see the danger because they don't believe in it. But belief has nothing to do with it. The woods don't care if you believe in them or not. The coins are still scattered in the dirt. The vending machine still spits out strange items. The dining sets still appear clean and perfect in places they shouldn't. The red tape still warns you to stay away, and eyeless Jack is still out there, watching from the trees. And then there's the dog. These might just sound like stories to you. Maybe they are. But stories have a way of teaching us things. Back in the old days, people used stories to warn their kids about dangers, to teach them how to survive. My parents' stories about the old country taught me to respect the things I couldn't see and to listen to the signs around me. That's what I'm trying to do with this guide. If you're reading this and you're one of the future rangers here, take my advice seriously. These stories aren't just entertainment. They're warnings, lessons, and survival tools. Pay attention to the patterns. Watch for the signs. And above all else, respect the woods. I've been at this job for a long time. Too long, maybe. I told myself I'd retire soon. But I don't know, maybe the truth is I'm not ready to let go. I feel like as long as I'm here, I can keep a little bit of control over the chaos. I can keep the board updated. I can warn the hikers. I can keep the bowls filled for the dog. But I am getting tired. My bones ache in the mornings, and the free coffee doesn't work quite like it used to. Someday soon, I will have to pass this job on to someone, and I hope whoever takes my place will read this guide and remember what's important. The woods are strange and dangerous, but they're also beautiful. They deserve respect, and the people who come here deserve to be protected. So to whoever's reading this, I'll keep you with one last piece of advice. Take the job seriously. Warn the hikers, even if they laugh at you. Your warnings will help. I wish we could protect everyone, but we have done good here. Our ranger team has saved more people than I can count. If a hiker goes missing, you call it in immediately, and you make absolutely sure you search in pairs of twos. Never alone, ever. We've lost too many of us that way. Missing hikers can be saved, but you gotta be quick. Search in pairs of two, and keep your wits about you. Oh, and watch out for the coins, the tape, the dining sets, and everything else that doesn't belong. When you see anything like that, call it in immediately, and keep the hikers away from it. And don't forget to fill the bowls out back. As for me, I'll stick around as long as I can, and the rest will be up to you. Hey, I'm Steven. I helped write this story, and it is part of a much bigger world we're building. I just want to say thank you for all the encouragement. It's been really fun to be writing again. If you like scary true stories, check out our second channel, Lighthouse, where I'm on camera, and I tell and react to scary true stories all the time. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you tomorrow night.
At Harbor Freight, we do business differently from the other guys. We design and test our own tools and sell them directly to you. No
Hmm.